I don't think that there's any real question that the president in his past life as a businessman in New York went to great lengths to keep his life private and to keep things quiet, especially later on. My wonder, the big problem for him is going to be, was this anything to do with election funds? That would be major. I don't think, it doesn't seem like it is. We don't have any evidence so far that it is. And the second question, which could be more major, is did he know this recording was made by his personal attorney and stored in his office before the FBI seized it? And if he did know that at the time that it was made, how many more of these personal conversations between a client and his lawyer were recorded that could come out? Has Michael Cohen been recording the president the whole time?
Well, the reporting suggests that this is the only one, but that's a question for the attorneys. I don't know if either side has said that publicly, whether or not that's the case. But, in all of this, you say that it matters when the president knew about this. Why?
I think the main thing that would matter is if he used campaign funds to do this. Did he break law? Did he misuse donations as opposed to using his personal money? That would be where the president would get in trouble with anyone other than his family.
All right. Jessica?
Well, we were talking about this a little before the show started, and I completely agree with Chris that the legal issue here is going to be whether campaign funds were misused. Everybody knows that the president has cheated on previous spouses. We're not sure about Melania at this point. And that's been accepted. We all heard the Access Hollywood tape, and millions of Americans still went out and voted for this man. So that's not going to shock anyone here. And I don't think that Michael Cohen being a bit of a dirty dealer is also going to shock anyone. So we have to see what happens with the campaign funds issue. And as we were discussing Harris, there were 1 million documents or something like that available.
Well, I don't know the number of them, but there were
many more than they actually took. So whether this will be a continuing process or not, and then whether this is Michael Cohen making a final plea for a pardon in the end of this.
I want to step in with this. So Rudy Giuliani, again, the president's personal attorney, confirmed in a telephone conversation on Friday, so this was today, that Mr. Trump had discussed the payments with Mr. Cohen on tape. These are his words, but said that the payment was ultimately never made. He said the recording was less than 2 minutes long and demonstrated that the president had done nothing wrong.
And there's nothing more to it. If the payment was never made, and if that turns out to be true, then there'd be nothing more to it. Can you imagine stopping someone at the polls who was going to vote for President Donald Trump and saying, what if I told you that Donald Trump dated the Playboy model? Do you think that's going to change a vote really anywhere? And it might actually hurt him with suburban women, because that's where the president has actually been.
I can't wait for Kennedy to respond to this. Kennedy?
No, I think you're absolutely right, because there are so many known factors about Donald Trump. He's not a politician. These are things that, people may find exasperating, but I don't know how much that moves the needle in terms of what's more important to people, which, it does all go back to the economy. And the other thing, if you can't trust your cleaner, who can you trust? If you can't trust the wolf.
I knew it was coming.
And what is Michael Cohen's motivation? Is this his own insurance policy to make sure that if he's ever in deep yogurt, he's got a way of flipping on the president to get
this is a man
with that billion in his pocket?
Who voluntarily, meaning on his own behalf, messed up to the fact that the judge said, really? You only have 3 clients? Let's get all of their names on the record. And that was why we exactly learned who his clients were, because he volunteered the information and then I guess made it look like later, or at least tried to, that was something that he was pressed into. It's a complicated situation. When the Wall Street Journal revealed the existence of the payment days before the election, Mr. Trump's campaign, then Mr. Trump, now president obviously, campaign spokeswoman Hope Hicks said, we have no knowledge of any of this. She said Ms. McDougal's claim of an affair was totally untrue. So you do have some going back and forth about the payment.
Well, it said, although, I don't know, I mean, we're reading through this as everyone is, but it sounded like
to us.
He said they discussed a possible payment and said, if you do it, make sure you use a check so that there's a record of it. It doesn't say
then the Wall Street Journal
happened.
But
right,
Michael
and then the Wall Street Journal says
said
existence of payment. So we don't know if the president knew that it happened or not.
We also have heard a version of the story where Michael Cohen paid out of his own pocket and then to be repaid by the president. So that was one iteration of this. But Rudy Giuliani in previous interviews has copped to the reality of this. And he said, yeah, and there are many other women to come. And then he had to backtrack on that. You remember when he first started and he was going on TV every day messing up. So
But that doesn't contradict this.
No, I'm just saying we've heard so many different versions.
But that's not a different version. That's the same version.
It is a different version that he actually made these payments, because Giuliani is saying here that they just talked about the payment, but the payment wasn't made. whereas obviously Michael Avenatti and Stormy Daniels say the payment was made.
Who here would actually hire Avenatti or Michael Cohen after the last 3 months?
Well, Avenatti
Michael
is
Cohen's a little busy right now
If
with
I
an
were
investigation.
rotting in a Turkish prison and with necrotic limbs and perhaps had hours to live, I'd still be going through the Rolodex.
I'd hire Rudy.
Yeah,
No.
With your teeth, because your limbs would not be working.
that'd be tough.
Yeah. Wow.